So are there particular points that you would like to bring up with regard to Tsongkhapa's presentation before we move on to Long-chen-pa's? Probably not. You've seen it several times now. You've written about it. But maybe. Now, I had a great time this morning reading the Long-chen-pa chapter, which you may not have, because you had other things to do. And I was coming on it fresh. And because I was fresh, it was like, oh, wow, you know? And so I think you have to sneak up on this sometime when you're not worn out, sometime when you are fresh. So what did you end up doing? Skimming the Long-chen-pa chapter? Is that what you did, or what? What did you do?
Skimming, I ended up reading half of it reasonably well.
Yes. I stopped at a certain point too.
Skimming, I feel
can't.
like I might as well not even read it
Correct.
at all, because it just, then it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I read the first paragraph.
First paragraph.
Or actually, the first
Page.
page. And that's it.
I sort of, in between skimming and reading carefully, kind of made it through it, but I kept trying to reflect on Long-chen-pa that I've read, and I was having terminological...
Of course, yeah.
And, but I think having come from the Tsongkhapa reading into this, I'm getting a fresher view into what Long-chen-pa is meaning than some previous translators have presented to me. In particular, I think this is a lot easier to read than Gunther.
It's not
In
hard.
terms of ease of reading, and also in terms of access of meaning.
Yeah.
It's good to...
Gunther, I'm just, I'm thrilled with his, the broadness of his intellect and this mind that can go out into a new field and then take some aspect of Tibetan Buddhism and translate it in accordance with that field. It's just, it doesn't speak to me, but I have tremendous respect for the intellect behind such a bold adventure. I don't choose to do it the same way, but why should we all do it the same way? I mean, how weak can you get? The weaker you are, the more you insist that everyone do everything the way you do it. Right? No, do it my way. So let's just read a little of it. And I was just thrilled with it this morning. I did stop at a certain point. It didn't take about so much thrill at one time. But it was a lot of thrill. I really enjoyed it. It's not very long. So, whether Tsongkhapa read any Long-chen-pa, I don't know. Whether people know how widely Long-chen-pa's works were disseminated in his own lifetime, I don't know. I'm anxious to find out. There are many positions that appear in Long-chen-pa's texts that are attacked by Tsongkhapa, but that doesn't mean that he read Long-chen-pa. He read things like Long-chen-pa, but it does mean that the milieu out of which Long-chen-pa came was somewhat, at least, familiar to Tsongkhapa. Long-chen-pa, of course, did not read Tsongkhapa. Look at the dates. What are the dates? He died in 1363, when Tsongkhapa was 6 years old. 1357, isn't it?
1419.
1354. So, on top of page 125, the presentation of how the secret. So some people translate secret as esoteric, which means limited to a few. I don't know why. You know, my own preference is to translate words more like what they are, rather than to find some corresponding term. And if it says secret, I translate it as secret, rather than going to esoteric. But that's the word. Secret mantra vajra vehicle. Wow. Surpasses the definition vehicle. Now, I believe the term definition vehicle is itself a put down. It's all right. He's saying it surpasses it. I don't know how long that term was in use. It must have been used for a long time. Maybe, maybe not.
Do you know what it refers to?
I think it refers to the, like your own study in Tibetan class, study of definitions. You get at a topic by way of looking at its definition and its illustrations and so forth, rather than having direct experience. Of course, if you can have direct experience right away, who wouldn't want it right away? And he makes many statements to this effect, many statements to this effect, that's how Secret Mantra of Vajra Vehicle surpasses the perfection vehicle, or the sutra systems is wider, including both the perfection, or Mahayana, and Hinayana. So, first of all, is to notice, or first of all to me, is to notice he divides his texts, like most other Tibetans, into parts. He makes a case. He's not just speaking from, well, even if he is speaking from profound insight, he frames it in the form of an argument. Not of opponents to the argument, but of this is superior to that because, from this point of view, that point of view, and that point of view. And he also sets up a table of contents, which was really not known in India. Table of contents. You would have chapter titles. That's it. And in something like the 70 topics of, you know, there are texts that go into, that lay out, say, the 70 topics of the hidden teaching of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, the path structure. But it's not done as a table of contents. So it's not that, I don't want to say that Indians didn't break things down, obviously they did. But there's no such thing. If the first section has 4 parts, the first of those has 3 parts, the first of those has 2 parts. But this became a favorite way in Tibet of laying out a text. And there is a precedent in China. The Korean scholar Wan-chuk, known in Tibetan as Wen-sik or Wen-sek, and known in Chinese, which I don't speak, as Yuan-tse, pardon the pronunciation. I should write them out, shouldn't I? He's a Korean. So you can see the Tibetan Wen-sik or Sek. And the Chinese, I don't know what marks it has. Yuan-tse. Hun is narrator. He did this. It may have come into Tibet by way of him. It may have. Or it may just be that it arose in China. As I remember, it's terrible. 7th century? He wrote a commentary on the Sutra Unraveling the Thought, the Sunday in Motion of Sutra, that has an extensive table of contents. This was translated into Tibetan. May have come out of there, and it may have just been a simultaneous flowering. It's a way to make your topic clear, you know, to lay out in outline form what you're going to say, and then fill it in. Sometimes in Europe or America, it's boring, you know. My topic today has 4 subsections, and the first, which is, and the first has 3, and then you start thinking, this person's concerned about numbers, you know, rather than the material. Whereas for these people, it's a way of getting at the material. Yes.
I also kind of wondered if at some point it was a way of memorizing, if it was connected with the project of memorizing.
I don't think so, because when people memorize stanzas, for instance, of Chandrakirti's Madhyamakavatara, they just do it chapter by chapter. Now, in terms of memorizing a text, Tibetans will memorize a text without having the faintest idea what it means. Faintest idea. But people will memorize the outline of a text, yes, in order to get at its meaning. I did that with one text, a text on Tantra presentation. And I remember I went to the Dalai Lama, I told him when I don't know, it was the second time I met him, or whatever it was, 1971, 72. I said, I memorized it, and he said, repeat it. I said, Joda. And I said, oh, in front of all these people? And there was only his translator, and we were talking in Tibetan. I was so embarrassed. I closed my eyes and began reciting it, because I wanted to learn the text. So I had a good way, as you're saying, is to memorize the outline of the text. And at one point I opened up my eyes, and he has this huge smile on his face. I suppose that's when our association started. So, 3 parts: the division of the great vehicle in general, how the Vajra vehicle surpasses the definition vehicle in particular, you know, getting some sort of in general, in particular, very typical, and identification of how the Vajra vehicle is the effect. Why do you call it the effect? Divisions of the great vehicle in general. The great vehicle is 2 types: a causal definition vehicle and an effect secret mantra vehicle. Does Tsongkhapa agree so far? He calls them cause and effect also. Tantra thoroughly established in great vehicle says, so Siddhi Tantra says, then, brief indication of how the Vajra vehicle surpasses the definition vehicle. The internal. So you see, like exoteric and esoteric, I mean, what's better? Give me a break. Esoteric's always better than exoteric. In this context, esoteric, clearly better. And that's why people will translate it that way. So you get external, internal. Internal is clearly better. Tsongkhapa doesn't use those words. Doesn't make him any better. Please don't, I'm not playing that game. The internal secret mantra vehicle greatly surpasses the external definition vehicle. Double put down, external and definition. Please enter into the humor of my pointing these things out, okay? Don't think I'm squashing him or something like that. Although both are similar in ascertaining the essence of clear light, the basis. Very interesting. Because later he says, they really don't, the definition vehicle really doesn't get down to the essence.
He says it's only inferential.
Right, really doesn't get down to it. The basis and the phenomena that depend on it, they differ in terms of knowledge. In that the definition vehicle is obscured, but mantra is not obscured. So we're dealing with Tripiṭakamāla's 4 points, that the definition vehicle is for the obscured and mantra vehicle for the unobscured.
Question?
Yes?
Does this mean that the difference lies on the wisdom side? I'm a little confused with the word knowledge.
Oh, who knows? Knowledge, I think, means really getting at it. I don't think wisdom and method, because he's going to say that the mantra vehicle surpasses the definition vehicle in terms of both method and wisdom. But I think knowledge here means in really ascertaining what's going on. Very loose statement. 4, when they comprehend the profound and the vast, definition vehicle has no more than a profundity, than only a profundity that is concerned with a basis fabricated by the mind. Now, up above, he just said they're similar in ascertaining the essence of clear light, the basis. But now, when he gets particular, he says definition vehicle just has a basis that's fabricated by the mind.
Can you ascertain by inference?
Well, if it's inferential, then it should be incontrovertible. But here he's saying it's fabricated. How can you be incontrovertible by something that's made up?
I guess it's a question of how you use ascertain.
Well, and why does he say an ultimate truth known by determinative inferential valid cognition, breaking down objects through reasoning? Now, there is a breaking down of objects through reasoning. There is a usage of inference, even in Long-chen-pa's own presentation of the definition vehicle, yes. But also in his own presentation of the definition vehicle, aren't there the 10 bodhisattva grounds? Isn't there direct cognition of the truth? Why does he limit the perfection vehicle to inference? It's stunning. It's like, what are you up to? You ought to notice it. It's like a grand deprecation of what he himself in other places says about the perfection vehicle. What everybody has to say about the ultimate truth being directly realized in the perfection vehicle. What is he talking about? Is he making an anthropological statement? That's the way, one way I want to call it, in that, is he saying, well, we may claim that there are these bodhisattva grounds in which bodhisattvas directly perceive emptiness and all that, but when you get right down to it in terms of actual practice, people don't take it to that level. They just take it to the level of inference and they can't get beyond that. Is that what he's saying? In other words, he's looking at the populace. And so it's like in America, even though there's this claim of equality, there's in equal treatment before the law, there's tremendous inequality in terms of treatment before the law, right? And so is he making a sort of, that's what I mean by anthropological, or what would you call it, fact-based.
Okay.
2, only the paths of calm abiding and special insight, established through effort in terms of such a basis. Would Tsongkhapa have any problem with that? Calm abiding and special, no, I think that's fine. Special insight includes a whole lot, yes?
I'm still wondering about the idea of fabricated by the mind. Is that?
Oh yes, now that's interesting also. Yes.
Like with inference, there's something in the way as opposed to in direct perception.
Well, he seems to be suggesting that what you're getting at through inference, the object itself that you understand is only something fabricated by the mind. I don't think he's just taking the Tsongkhapa type position that inference gets at emptiness by way of an image of emptiness.
So in other words, the object is...
The object itself is inferior, which means the basis, the fundament that the definition vehicle is getting at is inferior to the fundament that the mantra vehicle gets at. Now, Tsongkhapa, remember, agrees that the mind of clear light, that is fundamental innate mind of clear light that's manifested in the highest Yoga Tantra, is not manifested in the Sutra vehicle. And if you take, remember way back we were talking about emptiness and mind of clear light, fundamentally a mind of clear light, are they two things or one thing when you get down to it? And you see in the Nyingma version, these two are, you know, Vajra mind, whatever. So, whereas in Ge-luk, emptiness is the object that's being realized by the mind of clear light that's the subject.
Even when it's fresh water poured into fresh water?
Yeah,
Even when you-
they then resort to the analogy that when you get to the state, it's like fresh water poured in fresh water, there's no differentiation between the two. So every system tries to have a cake and eat it too, right? So how they're having the cake is, you let the two be, they're not just fused, right? They're, as one person said, they're more one than one. But they relegate that to analogy. When you build a system, they separate them out. Whereas in Nyingma, these two are fused, not just fused, they're beyond fusion. They're not like two things that were put together. They are utterly in union. So from this point of view, the mind of clear light that's reached in Ge-luk-pa practices is something that is deeper than what is realized in Sutra. Even if the emptiness is the same. This is different. So you see, when Long-chen-pa says that even the basis is different, if you try to look at it in Ge-luk-pa eyes, it means the mind of clear light that you're getting down to is different. Which means that this whole thing is different in Nyingma. Because the two are one. Vajra, indivisible. Yes?
How can, that almost makes it seem like there's stages of emptiness that you can realize. And like that almost doesn't seem to make sense, because you think if you would directly cognize it at all, you just like, you couldn't be any different in one way or
It's
the other.
true. Well, where is it indicated there are different stages?
Well, you're sort of saying, well, this is deeper. This
Oh.
different presentation is deeper than what's in the sutra.
What's deeper is the mind that realizes it. Okay?
So we can realize it more fully than in the sutra.
It doesn't realize it more fully.
From different angles?
What's the depth?
That's very interesting. In Ge-luk, in highest yoga tantra, when you realize emptiness directly with the fundamental innate mind of clear light, you overcome the afflictive obstructions, both artificial and innate like that, rather than it taking another period of countless aeons. So the consciousness is more powerful. Emptiness is not more thoroughly realized. The emptiness that's realized in the sutra system and in the tantra systems, they over and over again say are the same. And then from that point of view, they say the view is the same. View not meaning the viewing consciousness, but the object viewed, emptiness. The viewing consciousness is different. But now, when Long-chen-pa says in the sutra systems, all you have is inference, there's still a problem with that. Isn't there? Yes.
My question doesn't have to do with that. Okay.
That's fine.
If emptiness is the same, if there's no different degrees of emptiness, then why in DD yoga the fact that they realize the most subtle emptiness of persons and phenomena, that seems to imply that emptiness is different from other emptinesses, or other realizations of emptiness, that's a different emptiness or...
There are, the long way around to answering your question. First of all, there are gradations of emptiness in the sense that within the selflessness of persons, there are some very coarse forms. We're all talking within the level of the subtle emptiness, the absence of inherent existence. And within all phenomena, it's the same. The absence of inherent existence of this body or of a divine body are the same. But the claim of its being more powerful to realize the absence of inherent existence of the deity's body rather than ordinary body is that this kind of a body will go on forever. The difference comes because of the subject, not because of the subject that's qualified by emptiness, the basis of emptiness, rather than by the emptiness itself. Any help? No.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I just don't understand then why they use the terminology the most subtle emptiness.
Okay, the most subtle emptiness means where's the chart in
Page 180.
100 and what?
80.
Is it down with this chart?
Yeah, I spent a whole weekend in that shop.
Come back next time with your question, okay?
Okay.
For instance, a subtle and coarse selflessness of persons, the lack of inherent existence is the subtle. The lack of being a self-sufficient entity is the coarse. So that would be like a coarse entity. Okay?
That makes sense. I mean, like I understand,
Yeah.
but then but the emptiness itself is the same.
If
Because
we,
even if
if
it's
we talk about the emptiness of inherent existence, okay, that emptiness, okay, how do various emptinesses become coarse or subtle? They become coarse or subtle by way of what the emptiness negates. Empty of what?
Okay.
What's the object of negation? If the object of negation is inherent existence, then they're all the same. They're all equally subtle. But then there are other levels of being a self-sufficient entity, where you have the sense of yourself as controller of mind and body, or of being permanent, partless, and independent, that sort of thing. Then those are much coarser.
Okay. So it's like you said at the very beginning when you said it's basically the subject.
That's different. There is the subject, now I can
You say the difference
understand.
between the subject and the object being negated, there's a difference?
Subject here means the object qualified by emptiness.
That's tricky.
No kidding. Object of negation means, for instance, inherent existence.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway,
But I still have a problem actually with the whole idea. I mean, if the emptiness is the same, the wisdom is the same in the sense that the object viewed, right, the wisdom is the same. I still have a hard time saying that it really is the same if one of them has the ability to cut through the afflictive emotions like that,
that's the power of the consciousness.
which has nothing to do with wisdom.
Which is the wisdom. It's the wisdom consciousness, but not that of which it is wise.
I think.
Okay? So, one can see how Long-chen-pa can say that there is a difference in what the two vehicles are getting at, even in Ge-luk terms. Why? Because he's taking the emptiness and the mind that realizes it and treating this as one thing. And he has very good reason to do so. Because in the actual experience of it, they are fused like, I mean, even in Ge-luk terms, like water and water. Many terms in Nyingma like, whatever, the expanse, Ying de Yeshe Nisume, the expanse of reality and the wisdom consciousness realizing it are non-dual. Ying de Yeshe Dutel Me. Within, there's the expanse of reality and the mind realizing it. It's not like something puts them together or takes them apart. This is really, the term makes fun of Ge-luk-pa type terminology, because Ge-luk-pa is keeping the two separate so much, emptiness and the mind realizing it. And it's saying, look, these are not two things that where you're like joining them together. So for instance, a term in Tibetan like union, which is sungjuk, actually the term itself means two, and juk is like put together. So, I have to say, sungjuk doesn't mean sungjuk. You know, putting two together doesn't mean putting two together. They're already together. And you're just getting down to that level to realize it.
Seems like that's, when you present it that way, I mean, is really Tsongkhapa saying that the emptiness and the mind realizing emptiness are two distinct?
Well, from a conceptual point of view, they're distinct. But I mean, he himself says that when you get to that level, they are, yeah. The only thing I wonder about here is Long-chen-pa seems to remove the possibility of direct perception of reality in the perfection vehicle. I mean, and thus I don't see how he could present the perfection vehicle. Except, as I'm saying, in this anthropological, not anthropological, whatever, looking at it and saying, well, look, people may be saying this, but it's actually, we actually don't do it that way. And in effect, the attainment of which is approached over many aeons. True enough, right? And with respect of true, I mean true, right? There's agreement.
Doesn't special insight have to be direct perception?
No.
Okay.
Special insight, it marks the beginning of the path of preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mind of direct perception that marks the beginning of the path of seeing is also special insight. You can include. And with respect, and the Sutra Unraveling the Thought says all the paths can be included within karma body and special insight. It's actually not that easy. But. And with respect to the vast, they have no more than only a discarding of non-virtues and adopting of virtues. The vast means, the profound means wisdom, vast means motivation, compassion, so forth. Within delineating as conventional truths, the aggregates, constituents, it says here senses, spheres, which should be sense spheres, and so forth, which depend on the realm of reality. Mantra, however, he's making a case, right? Ascertains gets down to non-dual, he's non-conceptual. Well, come on, give me a break. I mean, we should have that in the perfection vehicle too. But anyway, non-conceptual wisdom unfabricated by the mind. The essence of the truth body. So it ascertains or takes non-conceptual wisdom as the ground, as the basis of practice, merely through concentrative emphasis on focal points of the body. So, body, speech, channels, drops, instruments, blah, without depending on reasoning. Instead of using reasoning, what you do is concentrate on important places within the body, and this sparks, induces deep states, deep psychological states. So, deeper psychological states. Now, in Tsongkhapa's system, first you use reasoning, and then later you do the same sort of concentrated focusing within the body at certain focal points in order to induce these deeper states to realize the same emptiness. And now if you turn around and look at Nyingma again, there's the phase of called purity from the beginning. Kata. You didn't know this is going to be a course on Nyingma. Kane, Tapa. Which some people say means pure from the first letter of the alphabet. Pure from the beginning. Kane, Tapa. Kata. Kata. Kata, Chekchur. Chekchur. Cutting through the hard, the coalesced, breaking through the, well, I translate it as breakthrough. And this is done through such things as watching from where the mind arises, where it abides, and that into which it ceases, attempting to watch. And using reasoning sometimes. Non-production from self, other, both, and neither. Various types of Madhyamaka reasonings are used in this phase.
It would
Yes.
seem though that for Long-chen-pa, when he says they don't use reasoning, they go right from the non-conceptual wisdom to the focal points of the body. Even that, did I miss that?
Based on putting concentrated focus on important points in the body, wisdom will naturally appear, manifest.
I'm trying to go back to fabrication word. He's trying to say that the fabrication is the dividing of that union. Is that what it's?
I don't, well, it could be. I mean, I think that's certainly part of it.
Isn't he just saying that inference is fabrication? If you infer something, your mind is fabricating it because you're not perceiving it directly.
But is he merely pointing out the difference between direct perception and conceptual perception, that you are getting at the same object? You see, I don't think he's saying that. He's saying you are necessarily getting at a different object,
Well,
because the one's using inference and, yeah, okay. And whereas in Ge-luk, there's tremendous emphasis, whether you realize it through inference or direct perception, whatever, or through the fundamental mind of clear light, emptiness is emptiness. There's a preference for direct perception over inference. There's a preference for the fundamental mind of clear light over inference too, and coarser forms of direct perception. Clearly, no question. I mean, if you can have the fundamental mind of clear light, make a choice between it and a lecture on Madhyamaka reasoning, of course you'll choose the fundamental mind of clear light, or at least the system says you should. So yes, something that's realized by inference, he is deprecating as only made up by the mind itself. And when you think of it, if you realized the absence of inherent existence, if the fundamental mind of clear light manifested, I mean, this is like a basic structure of reality manifesting, your experience is vastly different, even if the absence of inherent existence in Tsongkhapa's terms isn't different. Vastly different. So, 4 points of the body, speech, mantra, channels, winds, drops, all of these secret practices. Thereupon, the natural mind abides within it. I was wondering this morning what it meant. The
non-conceptual
Within itself. Then Nanga-shupa.
I don't remember. Whereby, in one lifetime and so forth, that means in one short lifetime of this degenerate era, that means 60 to 100 years. It doesn't mean one lifetime as lengthened by tantric feats. The expanse, interesting terms, the expanse, the ultimate truth is cognized, enlightenment being actualized. Through this, the profound is just manifestly generated. His point being that it's not viewed as an effect, but meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness in the perfection system, is that a case of just viewing something as an effect?
Could you say that again? Because I'm not sure.
Well,
I understand your addition.
he's saying the profound is just manifestly generated as if it isn't in the perfection vehicle. So what about if you manifested the state of meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness in the sutra system, perfection vehicle? Wouldn't that be a case of the profound is just manifestly generated? Not this profound, okay?
But he's not saying that it doesn't manifest, or that it's not generated. Isn't he saying that it's not manifestly generated? Isn't there an implication that there's a difference between
Yeah, it's
cause
just,
and effect, like doing something?
yeah, it's just inference. It's not manifest.
Or something spontaneously arising without effort?
Well, is it that? Isn't he contrasting it with inference? But in the perfection vehicle, they don't say that. Even Long-chen-pa, when he presents the sutra system, doesn't say that there's just inference. So my name is Hopkins, so I'm hopping around, and I'm on this side and I'm on that side. And when you say this, I say that. And then when you jump to where I am, I jump over here. Also, with respect to the vast, this means we have wisdom and method, right? Wisdom and the profound and the vast, or wisdom and method. Having ascertained the expanse of reality as the basic tantra primordially established in the mandala of clear light, mantra teaches the path of path tantras, in which all conventional aspects, look, and then just jump, are ascertained as God's inestimable mansions and creations of Pure Lands. All conventional objects, mind, bodies, University of Virginia, stones, roads, cesspools, okay? Asbestos, all these things are just gods. All the people are really gods. You understand them? It's not a practice. No, they're not spontaneous either. They are gods. They always were. They're not newly spontaneously gods. They always were.
Isn't that why he's saying that the definition vehicle, their understanding is fabricated?
Right.
Because they don't understand ultimate truth in this way?
This is not ultimate.
I know. they
These are
don't
conventional objects.
I know, but on the next page it says,
You're going the right direction. You are.
The ultimate expanse and wisdom are primordially non-dual, that the definition vehicle doesn't realize that the two truths are undifferentiable.
Mm. That's a good point. It'd be a good way of going about it. That the two truths are so, or emptiness and this mind of clear light, are so undifferentiable. This cruddy desk that has these terrible things written on it, okay, is so fused with ultimate reality that it is just a divine table. Okay?
Not
It
even a table,
is
Yeah,
a divine table.
yeah.
And it's my own crud that makes it look like anything else. Okay?
Is it a table?
But it's not a table.
Oh, table, yes. You don't just, everything doesn't get dissolved out into just being ultimate reality. Rather, there's a fusion of conventional appearance and ultimate reality to the point, you know, you have a screen, movie screen, and the light of the screen and the objects. If you really put the focus on the light of the screen, and so everything is as light of a screen and barely notice the objects, turned our mode of perception around, then everything would become hierophanized. Everything would be a statement of reality itself. And if you think of all of this crud in Ge-luk-pa terms, of the appearance of inherent existence being removed, what would we look like? The Nyingma answer is gods and goddesses. We still have sex. Sexual identification, weird. But why not, if you have tables and chairs?
But do you have tables and chairs? He says that conventionalities are non-existent.
She's pursuing. That means the cruddy ones are non-existent. Do you follow?
No.
Look, our ascertain, you don't have to do any adopting or discarding. That means adopting and discarding means adopting things like the Eightfold Path and the discarding of non-virtues. Without any of this, you can penetrate through and see how things actually are. That we, sitting here, are gods, goddesses. That this is an inestimable mansion. It's not the way it looks now, however. It's not like you're saying this as it looks now really is an inestimable mansion and therefore there's nothing to practice. It's that when you penetrate to how it actually is, then it is an inestimable mansion. Oh, whew, tired from it. Creations of Pure Lands.
It seems like though if you're a Ge-luk versus a Nyingma, it seems like your perception of reality would be completely different. Reaching the same goal. If you both have this mind of clear light, your reality would be completely different.
In Ge-luk, what's said is, when you practice the stage of generation, you're pretending.
Right.
And you pretend that you're a deity. However, for it to work, you have to think, I am the deity. But you do it with a purpose, with an intention. Something that isn't a deity, you meditate on as a deity, but you have a purpose in doing so. So it's not like you hold back from thinking, I'm a deity. But in Nyingma, you're seeing the deity-ness that's already there. So now, in Ge-luk, you see, in Ge-luk, what they're concerned about is, then where's suffering? Where are you going to posit suffering? They're concerned, tremendously concerned with that. If everything is essentially pure, not only essentially pure, is pure. We're all gods and goddesses and inestimable mansion and so forth. How are you going to posit the Four Noble Truths and so forth? So you could say they substantialize suffering so that they can posit a path. Then you get into trouble when you get to Buddhahood. Because in Buddhahood it said, all you see is endless purity. Even in Ge-luk. All you see is endless purity. Talk about Ramjam. Ramjam is like a big number, but endless purity. So then, how do you explain this? When a Buddha comes in this room, a Buddha just sees endless purity in Ge-luk, even in Ge-luk. Doesn't see crud. But then what they do is they make of course, a distinction, which is from the Buddha's own point of view, Buddha sees endless purity. But from the point of view of perceiving what others perceive, perceives crud.
So it's through.
But still, if a Buddha is omniscient, a Buddha should be seeing crud from her own point of view. If you follow me. If that Buddha's consciousness is omniscient, shouldn't the Buddha be perceiving crud, if this really is crud?
So are you saying that if a Buddha's consciousness is omniscient, then they don't have their own perspective? They only have an omniscient perspective and knows.
Oh, they have two perspectives, their own and others' perspectives.
Okay, so why would omniscience force their own perspective to be a perspective of crud if their omniscience includes others' perspectives?
Yeah, because within their own perspective, they're omniscient, and that perspective is itself omniscient.
Okay.
And so if these things are really crud, shouldn't they be seeing that? But you know, you have to let a system have a break too. And they got some advantages earlier, and they get some disadvantages at the end of the path. Nyingma, you know, is because of speaking more from the point of view of the effect, Buddhahood, is saying, well, these things from the very beginning are gods, goddesses, and so forth. Yes?
But even if a Buddha is seeing crud, wouldn't that crud still be divine? Just like that table is like, looks like a pretty crummy table, but it's still divine. You know, sort of saying that even this crud is like the basis for something much that is pure and endlessly pure, and that's what a Buddha sees. Like it understands, he or she understands how it appears conventionally, but ultimately it's still, even that is pure. You know, so it still could exist in both ways. I don't know, yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. I don't think,
I agree.
yes?
Yeah, isn't that crowd, wouldn't the Nyingma say, maybe the non-recognition of this union or
Yes, so where do you posit it? And in Nyingma, what you do is you posit basic mind. You just watch their hands when they posit it. They posit basic mind, and then they posit the dynamism of that basic mind. Self. And so you take basic mind and the dynamism as if they are separate. Do you follow? So that you can get the crud over here and the basic mind is pure. Whereas, I mean, his hand should go like this at least, you know? I mean, if you're going to be really tricky, you put them up, you have basic mind and the dynamism of the basic mind, and all of this crud takes place on the level of the dynamism of the basic mind.
So is it sort of like the distinction between minds and mental factors?
They don't put it there. That's not their vocabulary.
Right.
But actually, there is an etymology that Kizun Sambo gave of mental factors, semjung, as arising from mind.
Right.
And that all of the crud does take place.
So is that what the
Yeah,
dynamism
sure.
of mind would be?
Well, I don't know as he wants
Arising.
functionally in the system, what he was talking about there in this topic, yes, the same, as far as I can see. Yes?
May I ask, from this Ge-luk-pa point of deity yoga and self-identification as a deity, and from this Long-chen-pa point of view that we have always been, are, and will be gods, how do you see the reflections of Jung and his problem with people thinking they're gods affecting the two views?
Oh, I think both systems have ways of saying, of keeping people in line. You know, your Nyingma teacher tells you, well, don't get carried away. Don't think you're a god now, or, you know, you've got to realize something. Or, one thing I think is, I myself sort of take a position between the two, which means I get all the faults of both systems. Doesn't get you out. That if you did remove the appearance of inherent existence, what would we in this room look like in Ge-luk terms? if we remove the appearance of inherent existence, I think we would look like what we think gods and goddesses are and what inestimable mansions are, even if we're not. Do you follow? Thus, from the Nyingma point of view, there's tremendous strength, value in saying you're already God and goddess, because that gets you out of perceiving this crud. But that there is development, and that when you attain Buddhahood and so forth, your appearance as a god or goddess is different from the appearance as a god or goddess now. That's my own speculation. Yes?
Why would you appear as, if you took away the appearance of inherent existence, why would you look like a god or a goddess as opposed to an illusory-like version of your original incarnate self?
Well, it just is a question of what that looks like. Does it have color? Does it
What does a
have...
god and goddess look like? I have a hard time. I haven't seen one in a while. So I have no idea when you say
Jesus, the whole basis that I'm talking from, I'm realizing is not shared.
Can you draw some things on the blackboard?
Draw some things on the blackboard.
I mean, is it what, bodies of light with no form?
Yes, with form I would say, but like bodies of light, yes. Yeah. Diaphanous bodies.
And we can still hear, but the sound would probably be very different also? Or?
Yes, no question. I'm wondering. Anyway. So you see, as you move back and forth between these systems, in one way they are very different, in one way they aren't. You know, they're talking about very similar practices. Actualization thereby of the 8 feats, temporarily. Did we list 8 in the Action Tantra book, or where do we have 8? Temporarily, in the supreme enlightenment, that's the supreme feat of enlightenment. Finally. It says etc. What comes after the supreme feat of enlightenment? Finally, and the teaching of whatsoever path doctrines are ascertained as the fruit tantras. Okay. Basis, path, and fruit. Therefore, the mantra vehicle is not obscure to serve the meaning of the profound and vast. Wow.
Hey, what are these 8? We had 4.
Drupachambo Ge. That's what they are.
Thank you.
What the Tibetan teachers usually say, it'll come later. They're easy to find. Look in Ge-luk-pa's presentation of the Tantra sets. The mantra vehicle also surpasses the definition through having more skillful methods. Even with respect to abandoning one object, abandoning so as to purified in the expanse without having to work at abandoning it. Wouldn't that be nice? You see, the perception is not that desire remains through Buddhahood, but it is purified. But it's purified in a very different way. You don't have to reflect on antidotes. And as Nagarjuna says, if he's talking to a man, and he says, if you have desire for a woman, think of her as doesn't he start with filthy? Meaning saran wrap, he didn't use that word, instead of skin, okay? And then he says, if you still have desire, think of her as your sister. And then he says, if you still have desire, think of her as your mother. Then he says, if you still have desire, think of her emptiness of inherent existence. You see, that's getting down. There's various levels of techniques to be applied. So there's some counterage. So he says this is done in the common way through transformation by the stage of generation. You see everybody as gods and goddesses. And within that perception, desire won't operate. If you see everybody as pure, as diaphanous, you won't lust after them. Do you think so?
No. No way.
Or just you yourself as diaphanous will lust after the diaphanous partner? Perhaps because you open your mind up by, imagining this way. Some of your unusual desires may surface. Or in the uncommon way, through using in the path heightened desire as the great bliss of individual investigation of reality. Well, that sounds like what we're reading, right? Where you use blissful consciousness to realize the emptiness of inherent existence. Definition of vehicle, on the other hand, relies on abandoning subjects, on abandoning them. Whereas in this way, they're naturally going to disappear.
Isn't that what they say, that in the perfection, in the sūtra vehicle, you do use desire, you do use, it's arideva, that you use giving away.
Using desire there, however, is a matter of, for instance, with a king fathering children, generating desire so you can have an erection, so you can have intercourse, so you can have a child who's royal and can run the kingdom. That's quite different.
There was also the sense of using afflictive emotions, wasn't there, as a means of...
Same. I mean, that's...
Same.
Yeah.
Could it be a case of just redefining negativity as positivity?
I don't think so. That would be neat.
Well, some of the language sort of sounds that way, like all this crud is in fact gold and jewels. And,
I follow you, yes.
It's a redefinition thing, perhaps.
Well, I don't know about redefinition, because redefinition in the sense that it may appear on the surface to be crud, and due to our own predispositions, we lock into it, we misperceive it as crud. And if you do see it correctly, then you will not see it as crud. Now, a number of you who are taking the Hinduism seminar, there's this thing about the contravention of social mores. And there's a lot in Highest Yoga Tantra about the quality of the clean and the unclean. Now, why? Why? It's because at core, the clean and the unclean are the same. And so, I mean, literally, crap has to be handled so that you can get over the warpage of the mind that freezes this into
dualistic categories.
Yeah, dualistic categories, or something that is filthy. So the suggestion is that no matter how awful things may seem, it is from the subject side that it's being made into being awful. Thus, the contravention of social mores and of one's own conceptions of clean and dirty and so forth are for the sake of getting oneself beyond this. For instance, if you're going to see the absence of inherent existence in everything, then it's in crap too. So then how much is the absence of inherent existence there, and how much is something that is horribly filthy there? Nuclear waste.
Yeah, but it'll kill you if you ate it. I mean, ultimately, it may not have an inherent existence, but conventionally, it wouldn't be.
It has an inherent existence?
No,
Yeah, well, that's-
conventionally,
it's
it
what's-
serves a function of making you feel damn bad.
It, if you could, I think they do question, if you can get to the level where you actually do see this purity, then it wouldn't have that effect. But of course, we know that all sorts of crazy people who think they're to that level, who die,
Well, it doesn't.
jump out of windows. Yes.
I was gonna say the Dalai Lama takes a lot of the medicine that has a lot of lead in it, and I mean a low.
Oh, that's, they purify it.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, supposedly purified.
So in highest yoga tantra, there's also deity yoga, and there's also
Yes.
a practice of, or practices of sort of transformational things where you're dealing with supposedly impure substances.
Yes, yes.
Could Long-chen-pa's definition vehicle be actually a judgmental attitude vehicle? Would that help to,
Yeah, it would be pretty odd to deprecate the profound meditative equipoise of bodhisattvas as mere judgmentality, right? You just sort of wonder, what the hell is he doing? Okay. So let's stop there, and next time, there's nothing to just...
Yeah, didn't you
Is
say
there?
something?
oh, no.
Yeah, nothing.
Oh, yeah, it's to just reflect on differences between Ge-luk and Nyingma, and how you would describe the difference. But just reflect on it, I'm not asking.
Just to,
Does, in Tantra, what does a yogic direct perceiver perceive?
It perceives the aggregates that are devoid of a selfish person.
Okay, so,
For instance,
okay, right, for instance, so then why would Prasangika perceive everyone as gods or goddesses, or I don't,
there's a jump in the between those
Yeah.
two that you haven't given me.
Well, just this talking, you said that you thought that we lost the context. We perceive.
The perception of this, of crap as not filthy, what mind perceives it that way? What, I think that's what he meant. It must be a yogic mind.
In Ge-luk, it's the mental consciousness. But in Nyingma, eventually, it's also the eye consciousness itself.
Of who?
You.
Pakyu?
You.
Of a Pakyu, of a superior, or now, today?
Yeah,
Because I've been working hard.
I don't know. There's the jump is because we're studying this lower Sanchantika.
Yes, yes.
You're talking from a
Prasangika.
Prasangika perspective, and I'm trying to make some kind of connection and can't really.
Well, you don't have to be a superior to, to shut off the process of my eye consciousness and see a goddess. I'm sorry. Do have
Her
to shut
reality
it
is too distracting.
off. I was wearing my Ge-luk-pa hat. Nyingma hat you always wear.
Thank you.